It's here. It's finally here. The long-awaited sequel to the popular Half-Life 2 mod, Entropy 0, is here. Entropy 02. Because if something works, you slap a number on the end of it and call it a day. I have previously described the original Entropy 0 as a very good but very rough mod. Like a rough cut diamond. Very pretty, very rare, but comes off a bit abrasive. But the sequel, it is a fine-cut diamond, the kind you would slap on a ring and use to propose to your girlfriend if she didn't leave you for the mailman. Before I progress with this personal review of my personal opinions, I personally highly implore that you download the mod yourself. All you need to own is the original Half-Life 2 games, and possibly download the 2013 single-player SDK, like the previous one. I don't know, maybe. I still had the SDK downloaded from when I played Entropy 01. I will put a spoiler tag warning before I delve too far into spoiler territory, but viewer discretion is advised. Entropy 02 is brought to us by BREADMAN, the original creator of Entropy 0, and his merry BREADMEN, meaning that with a larger development team, they have the capabilities to go beyond the first installment, and they absolutely knocked it out of the park. Vehicle sections, new assets, original voice acting, this mod has it all. The first thing you'll notice is the return of the protagonist/antagonist of the previous game, Bad Cop, now given the name Aiden Walker, or as he will be more commonly referred to out through this video, 3650. Now, instead of using recycled voice clips from the Half-Life 2 beta, he has a voice actor, and they went through full strides to make sure he sounded exactly the same as the previous, and they take full advantage of the new voice acting.
Wow, a gun! Those horses! I wonder if it's loaded. Yo.
At the end of the previous story, Bad Cop, or 3650 as he is now known, was taken by the Combine authorities and was subsequently promoted by having his consciousness ripped from his being in a most violent manner. The beginning of Entropy 02 has you going through flashbacks, including some scenes from Entropy 01 with additional context. Now let me start this with a preface. 3650 is a bad guy. Like a really bad guy. Let us compare to another Half-Life fan game where you play as a bad guy, where you play as a villain. In Hunt Down the Freeman, you played as Mitchell, a man who got hit in the face and has the moral complexity of wet cardboard, as he seeks vengeance against the guy who hit him in the face, but generally forgot about it for 20-something years. In Entropy 02, 3650 is a fascist authoritarian policeman, where even he is seen as the extreme. His co-workers think he is a freak, but his internal monologue actually paints a picture. His wife died, and his daughter was kidnapped. He went from prison guard to prisoner, as nobody would believe him. Nobody sided with him because they wanted someone to blame, and they picked him. People like him, he says. I have the feeling that 3650 was a mentally ill man with violent tendencies, and they discriminated against him because of his mental health issues. But then he got a second chance when the Combine came.
They used to tell me it wasn't normal to be like me. They locked me up, medicated me, outcasted me. People took everything from me. because of the way I am. My way of life. My family. My morality. People, talk, everything. Then came the Combine. They listened. They told me that the problems of the mind are not the problems of the soul. I only had one thing to give up for this job. My humanity. Some would say. I never had it anyway.
The reason why 3650 was sent to the outskirts of City 10 in the previous game was to make up for firing on several co-workers who believed him to be responsible for the death of his wife and child. Once 3650 is brought back to reality, or rather a clone of him implanted in the body of an elite soldier, he is given his new mission: locate Judith Mossman. He has been granted full autonomy and to be able to complete this mission. 3650 agrees, because his sole motivation is to gain enough credits to find who took his daughter from him. This is what drives 3650, no matter how many people he needs to kill to get it. One of the first changes to gameplay you will notice, besides a brief appearance in the prologue, you won't have the standard Half-Life 2 pistol or the stun baton. In its place is an infinite ammo recharging Gauss pistol and your foot. The kick is very interesting, being tied to the V key, or if you have a mouse with extra buttons you can rebind it to that, but I didn't because I used it to bind to quicksave. It should make it much easier to smack open boxes, and the game actively encourages you to kick boxes. Hell, you can even kick open doors if that makes you feel like a badass with a rock-hard cock. Further additions to the loadout include a Rebel MP5K, a gun which is everywhere with bullets dropped by nearly every enemy and has a burst fire and automatic fire mode. The shotgun was nerfed, now being only able to hold 18 shells in reserve. Damn. The mod starts off inside Nova Prospekt during the events of the Half-Life 2 Episode 1 and 2. The facility is overrun with antilines, and you must push through them to reach the evacuation site. It is during the introductory chapter that you learn the new mechanics, but also one that was seldom used in Half-Life 2, the squad. During heavy firefights, Combine soldiers will be added to your squad, and they play a much greater emphasis here as an elite commando than in Half-Life 2. But don't get too attached, because eventually you will reach segments where you will leave your surviving troopers or they die violently. Another seldom seen item returning in Entropy 02 is the Slam, the tripwire C4 hybrid that only appeared in the Half-Life 2 deathmatch. They are actually required to blow open doors and walls at various points in your playthrough. Don't worry, they are all marked. One observation I have made is the lack of conventional health and charging stations. I have counted only like 3-4 times that you get to see these, instead leaving you to rely on health and item pickups. Your suit also defaults to 200 suit charge instead of 100, but trust me, the extra charge will save your ass in many situations. 3650 arrives and then storms a facility called Arbite Communications on the hunt for Dr. Judith Mossman. Here you will find new varieties of enemies, like shotgun rebels with an entirely original model which parallels the shotgun Combine, the jumping rebels, and once you make your way into the basement, you meet the main antagonist for the rest of this mod. 3650. Before writing this review, I intended to make a smaller review about another mod, then the release date for Entropy 02 release the following day, and I decided, fuck it, and waited for that instead. So instead, I will review that other mod here as the intermission. Through the City is one of the many attempts at making a Half-Life Opposing Force sequel. Many people have tried to make a sequel, and many people have failed before. Ravenholm by Arcane was cancelled by Valve. Opposing Force 2 was just too ambitious for what little resources they had. Prospect was shit, and you had to pay for it, and they tried to make it better, but the new team were assholes, and the improved version never saw release. But Through the City looks to be different. They have a team composed of not assholes, acting like a well-oiled machine. The mod retains the look and feel true to the original Half-Life, and they've even got special guest voice actors. Harry S. Robbins reprising his role as Dr. Kleiner, Lanny Minella reprising her role as Coilette Green from Decay. I've never even played Decay as much as I really want to, but this is freaking awesome. And
listen here, sir, we don't want any trouble. We're just working hard to stay alive, okay?
Is that Corey Cruz?
You might want to take that elevator to find some kind of weaponry. It's your best bet to get out of here alive.
Is that the freaking Postal 3 dude?
I regret nothing.
And that's not all. They've shown pre-release materials for their 6 planned chapters, the last of the Race X Shock Troopers, A Strider to Surpass Metal Gear, and more. I highly recommend you play the demo, and just give the team your fullest support since they're doing amazing work. And since they are mostly Eastern Europeans, it's correct to call this mod Slavjank. But I mean that affectionately.
9mm fully automatic weapon with grenade launcher acquired.
9mm? Try 4.6 by 13mm. Losers! Yeah! Before I enter full story spoiler territory, enjoy some raw gameplay footage backed by the Entropy 02 soundtrack. The main antagonist of this game is 3650, or rather another clone of 3650. After having support cut off from his previous mission to capture Judith Mossman, he was trapped in the basement of the Arbite facility, eventually learning what they were after and deciding to take it for himself, modifying his body and planning his eventual escape. Of course, he cannot let his successor, you, interfere with his plans, and if you won't join him, he dumps you in the basement, where he had to survive for several weeks, where you learn the truth about everything. Arbite Communications is a subsidiary of Aperture Science. After discovering the existence of temporal anomalies that would be created by Aperture at a future date and time. It's also here you'll meet your only friend for the rest of the game, Wilson, a defective turret. Wilson provides a bit of exposition, banter, in what would otherwise be a completely isolated experience. He's like Noam Chomsky if he could talk back. I really like the interactions between Wilson and 3650, as he actually allows you to understand more about your character, much to the annoyance of 3650. And this dialogue is completely optional, as after you escape the Aperture facility, you can just dump him where you left him. This facility also brings back the Go Gnome from Opposing Force, and because the Emancipation Field destroys all your weapons, he stalks you as if you were playing a horror game, like Mr. X from Resident Evil 2, or if your estranged mum comes to a very awkward family reunion. You also get a new weapon, the Zen Grenade, which sucks things and enemies into a wormhole, and sometimes spawns health packs, energy packs, and Zen enemies. I think some of the assets were borrowed from Black Mesa, but the fact that it plays Half-Life 1 music when you first get to use them, that is amazing. After escaping, it's the rest of the mod. Now with a rideable Combine APC, high-octane fights which feel like a goddamn war zone, the clone cop calling you a tool for space fascism, and the reintroduction of this Race X pit drones. I love these little guys and they're back now. Your chase race against yourself to capture Judith Mossman eventually takes you to the end of all things, the project. The fight with Clone Cop ultimately culminates in his injury and Wilson dying in my arms. Never have I felt so bad about the death of a robot.
We made it, buddy. We're gonna have to leave here now. So long, and thanks.
Reunited with my prototype AR-2 from Entropy 01, aka the Combine Auto Shotgun, you take on the final encounter, the Borealis. After his heart-to-heart with Wilson, 3650 finally starts to see that his clone might have been in the right all along. This is made shockingly obvious when the Combine Advisor Grub, giving you your orders, appears and rewards you with an involuntary promotion. To become the master copy of 3650, he has to have the memories of Ava, his daughter, removed from his mind. But these memories are what motivated Aiden Walker in everything he has done up to this point. The pain is what drives him, and without it, he is no different from every other Combine drone. The choice is clear.
I don't want this. With respect, I'm a better asset this way. I can't let you do this. I won't let you do this.
Not gonna lie, I died a few times at this boss fight, and I learnt much later, while writing this script in fact, that you could use Zen grenades to summon Voltigons to help you in the fight, but I eventually learnt my own trick of dealing with the grub itself. To block the larger projectiles, you use the grub itself as a shield. Don't get too close, and he will use his melee attacks. But he eventually dies, and Aiden Walker now has to destroy the ship to stop the Combine. His actions ultimately give him an audience with a third party, who has so far remained uninvolved with the events of both entries to Entropy Zero, but he repays the debts for his hand in the actions. Agent Walker cannot have both of what he wants, so he has to give up one thing. The G-Man cannot bring his daughter back to life.
I'm guilty of a lot of things, but I didn't kill my daughter. Maybe knowing that is enough. I don't want them to use my memories anymore. Do it.
And as payment, he decides to end the cloning of himself so the Combine cannot abuse him ever again. The G-Man departs as the Combine begin to close in on himself and Agent Walker, and the fate of both and the rest of the Half-Life universe remains a mystery. In conclusion, I highly recommend that if you are a Half-Life fan or just have a passing interest in the games, that you play this mod immediately. It is free as long as you own Half-Life, so there is literally no reason not to. It even has deleted maps and challenge modes as additional content. I've not played them myself, but it is something to consider for later. That is all for this video, and remember, the right man in the wrong place can make all the difference in the world.
I found you.
Wilson?
The Combine has simulated Arbite 3, boss. I got into their systems.
Wilson, it is you. I can't believe you came for me.
We don't have long, so listen. The Combine are trying to get the ship back. We can't let them have it, boss. We gotta get you out of here. It's not much, but I found you a gun.
Okay. What's the plan?